Alrighty. It says I'm live now, so let's see if people can hear us again. People in the chat, can you hear us? Hello, hello. Is
Part 3.
It says I have an excellent connection now, so
This is the third link.
yeah, this is the third. Yeah, this is. I mean, we went an hour and a half without any technical problems. I'm not sure what is causing the problem.
No idea. Oh, I think just...
Can you guys hear us? Okay, someone's okay. Good, they can hear us. All right. I'm not sure if it's YouTube that's the problem, if it's OBS that's the problem, or if it is my internet connection. My internet connection seems completely fine. OBS seems fine, so it seems like YouTube is just getting upset. I think there's a problem between OBS and YouTube.
Could be,
But no, this is unprofessional by its nature, so I guess I don't mind. I mean, it's as simple as restarting the stream. Right away, I see someone asking about the old soundtrack for TM and Fallen Sage. I have the entire soundtrack for Time's Menagerie, and I think Adam still has it too.
I have it too.
I think Adam has it uploaded on. I'll ask him when the stream's done. I think he has it uploaded on I want to say Bandcamp or something. The Fallen Sage soundtrack, it's still is it's well, it's I hesitate to call it soundtrack.
Wow.
It still exists in the files of the game, so you could probably extract it, but I don't actually have like a folder with all the numbered music and everything in it for that. So someone said the stream problems happen every time I start making sense.
Yeah, there you go. No, but we could go back to what we were talking about when.
What was I talking about?
The Sonai and going
Oh.
with our original idea.
Oh yeah, someone asked what I was gonna do with the barbarian tribe. The answer is yes, but I am waiting on the Breath of the Wild Electric Boogaloo before I want to see what they do first, and if they actually do something interesting, which is possible, but I don't know if they will. If they actually do something interesting, I in my mind I have something I'm gonna do with them right now, but I'm just waiting to see what they actually do. It'd be really funny if it is similar to what I have planned, but I doubt they'll do what I have planned.
I still think the original. I still think we should just go with the original idea.
I probably am going to.
With the Ikana, and it makes a lot of sense in Hyrule Conquest canon, because the thing is, what we know about them thus far of the lore is that they mysteriously disappeared, and it sounds kind of similar to something else, right? And they left just a bunch of ruins that are now inhabited by Lysalphos.
Yeah, someone's asking about the Discord, so I'll generate a new link to the public Discord. And I'll paste a link to the public Discord in the chat there for anyone who wants to join the public Hyrule Conquest Discord. Alrighty, so I apologize to anyone who asked questions before the last stream died. Now I can't look. Maybe there's a way to look at them, but I can't figure out how to look at them. So I guess ask them again. I'll try and because yeah, I have to leave in like 50 minutes. So I guess we'll just do a Q&A thing. And if you want to do, because we didn't really do a lore discussion, I guess. If you want to try next weekend, we can try and do it again. Can you even hear me, Deox, or is the streamer? Oh, okay. If you want to try and do a lore discussion next week, we can do it again. We'll cut off questions next week because. Yeah, I don't think I'll be able to get through all the questions in 50 minutes. I have to go.
Fine.
Yeah, today technically wasn't the best day to do a stream, but I'm still happy we got to do what we did. I guess people who are asking questions, I guess ask lore questions if I mean you can ask any question, but I have a bias to lore questions.
Yeah. If we didn't answer your question now, then try again, next time we do a podcast. We'll probably do one next week if nothing comes up.
Alright, next question after the Discord server is, hey Nephi, I made a question about Undead, Lionel's, River Zora, and Stalfos rosters. You made it, I'm not sure I understand exactly what that says. I presume you mean you're asking about Undead Lionel's, River Zora? inevitably or eventually, depending on how long I live, there will be an undead variation of everything in the game for the Stalfos. When I first make the Stalfos, there's just gonna be a generic skeleton for the dead that you raise. But there's gonna be the crazy Nephi is gonna try and make it so that eventually there's like undead variations for everything. Which is gonna be crazy. But
Yeah.
are you going to include the four giants of Majora's Mask? Yes. And I'm not surprised that there are four giants that live on the margins of Termina, and that they are responsible for keeping destruction at bay. That seems symbolically sound to me. Let's see, what faction or factions at this point do you have no idea what they're going to be like? I have some idea, but probably the faction with the least clarity right now is Aghanim's. I've even debated demoting him to a minor faction. I have some idea of what I want to do with the Aghanim's faction, in terms of like gameplay style,
Well,
but there's a lot of things that now that I've really started to think into it, he might get demoted. I'm not sure yet, but I would say he's definitely the least the least fleshed out, in terms of
demote them.
ideas I have down in documents.
Demote them.
What other ones? Most of them, I feel like I have a pretty good idea of what I want them to be. Like,
Demote them.
huh?
Demote Aghanim.
Demote Aghanim.
Yeah.
He'll be the first to be demoted if he does. I can't think of any other factions that I don't have any idea for. Most of them I feel like I have a plan for. His is just the least of all of them. So someone said, yeah, I just answered the question. So anyway, will the aura be usable in the freeform campaign? That would be awesome. I presume you mean the Demoko's divine spear. In the freeform campaign, I can definitely see that. If, like, he plays the Oka, you're moving around the map with the Sky City. That would be awesome. In the skirmish mode, I don't know. I was actually talking with Odysseus. I think it was Odysseus, someone, about using the Demoko's aura in the skirmish mode, but that might be way too powerful. It's basically a I win
The
button.
equivalent of a nuke.
It's the I win button.
Yeah, it's pretty much the equivalent of a super nuke.
Yeah. Someone asked, why do the fairies not have any commander units? I don't know. I guess I felt like they didn't need any commanders. I guess the Great Fairy is kind of a commander, but not exactly. I might classify the Great Fairy as a commander, because if there would be a commander, it would be the Great Fairy. But I kind of treat the Great Fairy as more like a really powerful just mage unit. Maybe I'll tweak the Great Fairies and also make them commanders. Let's see. Why do the Hylians not enslave their neighbors like Librinians? Well, because they are medieval.
And they want to be isolated because they're dicks.
They're more interested in feudalism. They have the Hylians, which is kind of funny because they really are like proto-Roman if you compare them. They're still very pagan, but like there's a lot of things about the Hylians that are like post-Roman, which is kind of, and I see that even in canon Nintendo, but I think Japan's just very confused about that kind of thing. But Hylians have some idea about the intrinsic value of human life. I guess in their case it's Hylian life. Whereas when you get to post-medieval cultures, you kind of see that start to slip out of the window. I'll try not to rant about the Enlightenment, but you kind of see this notion that even in like the shittiest of people, like there's still some human value in them. You kind of see that start to manifest in the Middle Ages, and At least in places in Europe. Obviously not everywhere. There's a, there's a lot of abuse of human rights from a modern perspective in medieval times. But Hylians, they're more interested in feudalism, I guess. They'd rather yeah, and also like Diox said, they're kind of I don't want to use the word because it's been ruined, but they're kind of racist.
Oh, really?
Yeah. Labrina is the kingdom of Hyrule doesn't really have a wish to conquer the world through military force. Not to the same degree as Labrina. I mean, Hylians obviously war against their neighbors, but just kind of the nature of the neighbors of Hyrule, they've been kind of forced to be on the defensive for most of their existence. They've never really had an opportunity where they're like, we should conquer the world. They've always had like some power on their border that if they stepped out of line, it would backfire against them. Even during their golden age. Probably lesser during their golden age, which I guess begs the question why they didn't expand during that. That was the best opportunity for them to do that. um, Hopefully that answered that. I don't even remember the question. Oh, why did Helians not enslave? Yeah, it's because. Yeah, I hope. Hopefully, I answered that question. I feel like I really rambled on answering that question. Coden says because Hylians aren't as evil. Hylians are capable of being as, if not more, evil than Labrina. It's just a question of whether they embody it. Let's see, like as giants of Icona, because according to the theory and the symbols of the Stone Tower Temple, the Iconian people decided to turn their back to. I don't think that was a question, but what they're talking about. Actually, my username. If you're familiar with the story of the Nephilim, it's very similar to the giant story in well, it's not very similar, but there are parallels between what the person's bringing up with Icona and the giants and the goddesses and all that, which is why earlier I said I'm not surprised that in Majora's Mask there's these literal giants that live on the border of the world, and they're kind of like that threshold between the world's destruction and not. That doesn't that symbolically that's like perfect. How exactly did Ambi come into contact with Varen? Yay, lore questions. It was kind of incidental. Varen kind of starts just wandering the world after. I mean, I'm gonna portray it a little bit differently when I redo the Gerudo Wars stuff, because you actually in what the stuff I did for the Gerudo Wars, you actually don't see the fate of Varen. She kind of just has like a surprised reaction when Onyx dies, and then like it's nothing with her is ever addressed after that. She basically just starts to wander the world as kind of like an aimless spirit, and then she Labrina starts to embody her. Now Discord is saying my connection's bad. Can you guys on Discord hear me?
Yeah, we can.
All right. Now YouTube's fine. Now Discord is giving me a problem. All right. Well, if Exo and Deox disappear, then it's an issue on my end, probably. Let's see. Haven Gale says, "Heyo, I'm new to your streams. You're pretty awesome." Well, thank you. Hopefully the streams are awesome too. I feel like these streams are incredibly unprofessional and just go like they're just so random.
It's part of the charm. It's part of the charm.
Yeah. I mean, I listen to a lot of just completely rambly, unprofessional streams on YouTube, and those are some of the best ones for me. So, Adam asked, "Where did Link get his boots?" I know what that's a reference to. I might have to have a point where you actually see him buy his boots just as a joke for him. You do find out where Link got his hat, kind of, in canon. If you know anything about Hylian culture in Nephi canon, you probably know where he got his hat from. But, alright, let's see if I can find the next question. Someone says the giants of Majora are cooler than three goddesses. Well, one, I'm not entirely sure what the goddesses are in Nintendo canon, so I guess by default they kind of are. um, if they match the patterns of reality, the giants are actually something you probably would not want to follow. They're kind of more like something that's just part of the world, but you would not want to make an idol of the giants in Majora's Mask because they would end up actually causing the moon to fall. But now I'm going into really esoteric territory, so I'll stop myself. See, are you doing more Twilight factions? Yes, not soon, sadly, but the Tweely factions are all my favorites, so I really want to do them. You might even catch me ranting on Discord about, man, can't I just like do the Tweely now instead of Laverna? I
Yeah,
really want to do the Tweely. They're my favorite. I think they will when I'm done with them, they'll be the best part, the best of my work. Everything I have planned for them, all of the fleshing out of the Tweely realm I have planned. I feel like that's going to be like the magnum opus of Hyrule Conquest. Sadly, that stuff's very far down the list, so it's going to be a while till I get there. Um, will Akalans be like the Hylians gameplay wise, or have their own gimmick? They will not be like the Hylians. Their stuff is kind of more hero focused, although when I first made the Hylians, that was kind of the case. Um, they'll have something to do with houses. Let me put it that way. Deox is like, I can already imagine Deox like, oh, I can't wait.
yeah, it's gonna
Is
be
it safe
great.
to say Akala is probably your favorite faction?
Yeah, I think that's safe to say.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure they are.
Uh, Akala and probably the Wizrobes, honestly.
Akala and yeah, hmm. I'm not sure. I think I might like Akala a little bit more. But I would say neither of those two are near the top of my list. They're kind of like mid tier in terms of. Nah, I can do like Akala kind of. I don't know. I'll change my mind when I get to working on them.
Yeah,
What do you think of Tingle as a villain? That'd probably just be Skull Kid, honestly. Um, that answer might confuse people. I feel like if Tingle became a villain, it might as well just be Skull Kid. um, See, if you were to make a Zelda fanfic with both Nintendo and your canon, would you be cool with that? My concern with that is, say Nintendo, by some astronomical miracle, was like, "Hey, we want to make your thing official." My concern is they would dramatically try and censor some of the things I'm doing. They probably would be like, "No blood," so I'd probably ultimately reject the cooperation. Unless it really was a situation where Nintendo's like, you have complete creative freedom. Here's a bunch of resources to make it happen. We don't care if this ends up being a financial disaster. Just do it. Then I'd be like, yeah, that'd be awesome. I suspect Nintendo would, if they had any interest, they would censor things like Agatha's death scene. That would never show up in a Nintendo game. They're too family friendly now. You'd never see something like that ever. I have a hard time believing they'd permit something like that. So the answer to that question is it depends. The same person also asked, will I ever do a face reveal? I technically have, but it has been a pretty long time. I might. I feel like I kind of want to remain a principal with less embodiment, but I don't know. I might someday. But I guess to answer that, I have. Just not in a long time because I don't know. I don't really have any interest in it. I guess I'm not really anonymous either. Like I don't know. There's quite a bit about me on the internet. But anyway, let's see. Next question. More lore questions. Do creatures become more human-like the more intelligent they become? Is that in regards to Nephi canon or like reality? Because at least symbolically, I would say that's true. The more intelligent something becomes, just by necessity, humans will see it as more human. Like humans project their their humanity onto things that they can relate to. So if something acted more human, especially in terms of intelligence, then I would say yes, it is becoming more human, at least symbolically. So that's probably the case in stories too. I guess the question is, what do you mean by intelligent? Because I do think it is possible to have intelligence that is not human at all, but we'd not recognize it as intelligent at all. We wouldn't even see it as intelligent. Um, so hopefully that answers that question. How is it that Nalith is Zelene's half brother? Nalith is Nephilim. I guess that's one way I can answer that question. Um, I guess read the Book of Enoch. That might give some kind of answer as to why he's his half brother. And then there's that question: how did Link get his boots? He bought them. What is the Fey constructs based off of? The Tomb Kings constructs. Do you mean their aesthetics or what they are in terms of lore? Their aesthetics. I'm not even sure where the aesthetics for the Fey golems, or the, I guess not just the golem, but all the fairy Fey stuff in Hyrule Conquest. I'm not even sure where. I think it came from just looking at a lot of old like primitive Celtic art, which had a lot of that kind of warped stones and stuff. So I kind of like made that a little more extreme, where they looked like stonework that had been twisted into kind of wind like shapes. As terms of their what they are, they're what the name is. They're Fey. They're fated to die. That's the best way I can answer that part of the question. It's all in the name. See, is the Silent World another parallel world or dimension? I feel like that would be looking at it materialistically. The Silent Realm is like, if you're familiar with Norse cosmology, or really any ancient cosmology that has worlds, it's not like it's not like another planet you go to, or another dimension in terms of like the scientific definition. It's more like, I even kind of treat the realm of Twilight like that now. I mean, I'm pretty sure that's the case in Nintendo's canon too. Like Lorule and Termina and the Silent Realm. I don't think they're like actual planets or dimensions you physically travel to. They're like the Norse worlds. They're different. They're they're different places you can be. They're not places you can go to. If that makes any sense. They're not defined by their geography. I don't know if Deox wants to chime in with
I
that
mean,
one.
it really depends on kind of how you look at it. I guess you could understand them as different like aspects of the state of the inhabitants, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
Uh, like a lot of worlds in mythology kind of reflect inhabitants, like their
Yes, the imagery,
mentalities.
yeah, especially like we are talking about earlier with with the first sages be seen as different. It's a similar concept to that. The
I can make an
culture
example. Yeah,
warps them a little bit.
I can make an example like the fringe or the margin. Like that is from an agricultural standpoint, that is beyond the fence of the farm, and which is where you would exile, troublemakers, criminals, and
Yeah.
sort of the margin reflects that sort of mentality, and that's
Yes.
kind of what it is.
Yeah, and
For
it's
example,
different if you're a nomadic culture. There's still a margin if you're a nomad, but it is
yeah,
different. It's more it's even more terrifying if you're nomadic, because if you're a nomad, you are marginal to begin with.
yeah, but yeah, so I guess that's one of the ways you could kind of like explain what it is, but it's very difficult to. There are a bunch of different interpretations that could all be equally valid. But I kind of enjoy it. I like to think that they are a reflection of mentalities.
Yeah, I'd probably agree with that. I'm I'm tempted to use the phrase "they are states of mind," but I don't think that's what I'm saying either, because that implies they're just a construct of like the human
Yeah,
imagination.
I think it's important to note that there is a material component to it because we see in mythology that you can travel to it, but I think that the material aspect is just that. It's just an aspect of it. So
Yeah.
it's multifaceted.
We're talking about stuff that's really hard to come across from a materialistic point of view. Like I'm really struggling to put it into words cuz you can't go in a car and drive to the silent realm. You can't use magic or technology to physically go to the that's not what the silent realm is. The silent realm is how Raru acts at a given time is the silent realm. I think that's a better way of putting it. How someone acts determines if they are in the silent realm or not. I think I might have stumbled on a way of describing it. How you act determines what world you're in. There we go. I think that's it. I think that's the way to describe it. It's more about acting than your actual state of mind, I guess. Although I imagine your state of mind and the way you act influence each other. So, yeah. Like if you act the exile, you're gonna be in Jotunheim.
Okay, so yeah, so
You're
like,
gonna be in Jotunheim
uh,
whether you want to be or not. If
so
you act the part
like,
of the
okay, so if
exile.
I guess how mentalities reflect the material. I guess a good example of that. Okay, so let's say that we accept that the realm of Twilight is the margin. It's what is beyond the fence, essentially, right? And how would the mentalities reflect that? Well, it's looks like a dead world, right? It's lacking in resources. It's lacking in light. All the good things that is associated with the sanctuary or the farm, and that is how.
It's also confused because it's not clear what's light and what's dark. It's like stuck in the
Yeah,
middle. That's another trait of a lot of marginal states or worlds
yeah.
is it's not clear what's light and dark. There's that it's basically the place where stagnation stops, but it's not quite into full chaos yet where you're lost and destroyed. It's basically like it's the training ground.
Yeah,
It's where you get new things to save the center. But if you just allow everything in the margin to come into the center, then the center will cease being the center and it'll
and
also
also in a
become the
lot of
margin.
mythology, it's implied that even if you're within the sanctuary, if you want to, characters in, for example, in Norse mythology, for you that are familiar with it, characters from the sanctuary, which when I say sanctuary, I mean Midgard, Midgard, Middle
Yeah.
Earth, that you guys say in English. Uh, they have to travel beyond the fence to gain something and try to return to the sanctuary. And that's a very common theme that you have to leave the sanctuary to gain something.
Yeah,
And
because
that
the
we see that all
sanctuary
the
is ultimately stagnation.
yeah, and we see that all the time. Characters leaving. It's not always presented as just wanderlust or being adventurous. There's something else to it. It's the pattern of having to leave the comforts of the known to venture into the unknown and gain something out of it. Because you can't obviously get those things within the sanctuary.
And it's the same thing with things like Asgard, or I guess even to some degree the Sky City. Like, although this the Sky City is portrayed materialistically, but I think that has to do with Tomoko, which is why the Sky City falls by necessity because it's become too grounded. But even like
Yeah,
Asgard, like it's not a place you go to. It's the part you play in the world that determines if you're in Asgard or not, or Alfheim or any of the or Hell. Like it's the part you play in the world. Obviously, if you're dead in Norse mythology, you're in hell because just the fact that you're dead, like your dead body is participating in Helheim, or is it Helheim or just Hell?
both works.
Yeah, I've heard both. I'm actually not sure which
Yeah,
is the most official, but
nah, both works. They've used kind of randomly. The thing is, that's a lot of these places have many names. Because Norse mythology is inherently poetic.
Yeah,
I,
like
so,
your corpse doesn't physically literally go to Helheim, but because it is acting dead, it is in the world of Helheim. Like I don't know how to say that in a materialistic way because I'm sure there is a way, but I haven't figured it out yet. Like it makes sense if you look at it symbolically. Like it's how you act in the world that determines what world you're in. Like I don't know how else to explain. I think that's the best explanation I've the best way I've been able to word it so far. I don't know if you disagree with me or agree with me or not.
no, I don't disagree. I mean, you could make that argument with the other like worlds, if or even not even world locations. Like you could say that if you act in a certain way, act with valor, you are in. You could go to Valhalla or Folkvangr, right?
Yeah,
Because you act in a certain way, and that's where you end up going.
and like as an example, say let's go back in time and go to like some guy who lived in Norway or Sweden or whatever, and they exiled a person. Like that person, he's not physically going to Jotunheim, but he's exiled. He's in Jotunheim, like because he's acting out the part of the exile. I mean, he didn't choose to be in exile in this, the strictest sense of the word. It was forced on him because of the culture he lived in. But like, he's in Jotunheim. Like, it's not an act. You can't point and be like, oh, he's going to Jotunheim. You'd be like, he's acting out the exile. He's in exile. He's now in Jotunheim. Doesn't matter if he's in Norway or Sweden or the moon. If he's the exile, he's in Jotunheim.
Yeah,
That's the way to look at it. I'm probably losing like half my audience.
yeah. Maybe
Like it's
bring it
not
back.
Jotunheim is not a place with physical geography. It's a forum for action.
Anyway, while all those people are traveling to Jotunheim, I'm probably gonna travel to my bed.
Yeah, I
While
got
you guys
20 minutes
continue to
left
ramble
before
on.
I have to leave. So let's see if there's any last questions, and if there's not, I guess we'll try and talk about a lore thing before I go. I would stay honestly, I would stay longer, but I sadly have to go. Because I'm actually near the bottom of the chat. So oh no, I'm not. I scrolled down the bottom, and then a bunch of stuff appeared. Um, let's see. Let's see if I can find another. Oh, someone point out help. God, the chat, like when I scroll down, it's like it jumps. It doesn't scroll down one line at a time. So now I need to scroll back up. Let's see what I missed. Okay, there's the Silent World question. See, will the first sages ever be units like Sulcaris is in game? Demoko will be, but I don't know if the. I mean, well, I guess technically the others will be because in one mission they all participate. They all destroy each other. So I guess they will be technically. What happened to the Gerudo after the Gerudo Wars? Ganondorf was locked up and their culture kind of collapsed. A lot of the Gerudo just started mating with the men of other cultures. Um, some aspects of the Gerudo did not like that, and we did say we'd do spoilers, so I guess it's no surprise that Ganondorf is inevitably going to break out of prison and try and reboot the Gerudo Empire of the past. He actually shows up pretty soon, and by soon I mean whenever I start on the Labyrinth stuff. It was probably like a year or two. Let's see what the next question is. Not seeing anywhere. Will Link be able to charge into battle in the pouch of a kangaroo? No. It's a miracle that I even included the kangaroos.
Fucking kangaroos.
Let's see. Will there be anti-Kirby? Maybe. I haven't decided. Maybe anti-Kirby will show up. See, Demoko and Sulcaris fighting. Say, I enjoyed your cinematics and they blew my mind. Also have a quick question. Have you ever played Black and White? Yes. I love Black and White, especially the second one. Black and White actually kind of deals with some of the concepts we're talking about, although it also takes a materialistic perspective of it. But yes, Black and White is a great game. Although I think I'm in the minority in saying the second one's better than the first one. A lot of people think the first Black and White is way better than the second one. I think the second one's better. Um, personal question: what race faction do you relate to the most? No Hylians. Oh my god. It's probably Tweely. But only
Are you
it
just
depends.
saying that because they're cool?
No, it depends on how I'm acting. Sometimes I do feel like the exile, and I feel like I'm the twin. Sometimes I don't. um, Although I can say that despite the fact that I like the Tweely, I do not endorse embodying them. They're not an ideal way to live in the world. Um, God, which one do I relate to though? I relate to individuals, not the cult, not like the species or the race in general. um, uh, a little bit, I don't know, a little bit of Laneru, probably because of the dark, degenerate part of human nature. But that's like the case for everyone. Part of Ordana for like that yearning of escaping. The yearning for escaping the machine, a bit of Kokiri for the sadness of losing my childhood innocence, and a little bit of the Tweely for my fascination with possibilities and potentiality. A little bit of Laverna because I've grown up in a world of technology. A little bit of the fairies because I'm part of nature. I guess a little bit of everything. That's probably not a satisfactory answer. I apologize, but the thing is, it's funny that they say no Helians because ultimately I probably would be a Helian because they're the most human.
Yeah.
Like they're in the center, so by default, whether I like it or not, like Hylians, I probably ultimately, even if I deny it or I consciously reject it, ultimately I'd probably relate to Hylians the most because they're the center. Like there's no escaping the fact that I'm human and they're the most human. Um I relate to the Oka. I just want to be disembodied chicken heads, pure intellect.
Someone
Actually,
has said that.
huh?
No, someone said just before I forget that Jotunheimer is the place where the gods live, and while that kind of true, depends on your definition of gods. When we're talking about the margin, we're just talking about Utgard
The
in
gods
general.
live everywhere
Yeah,
in all
but we're talking about the margin.
mythologies. They're
Yeah,
everywhere in all
if we-
mythologies.
if we're talking about the margin, we're mainly talking about not just Jotunheim, but Utgard in general, like everything beyond the fence, which is Utgard.
Gap, whatever the heck that word is, I can never say it.
It literally it means just
The void.
outside. Yeah, out farm.
Ouch farm. I love it. I can never say that word. It comes off as like someone who has like Elmer Fudd from like the Gab. Or not Elmer Fudd, freaking the Porky Pig. It's like a stuttering word.
I guess Utgård would be Utgard would be kind of hard to translate to English. I guess it's something.
Chaos.
It's something that is outside. And it can kind of mean different things. In that context, it means everything beyond the farm. Essentially, I guess would be a decent interpretation of it. Everything beyond the fence.
Yeah, the gods in every mythology like lives everywhere. Like even in Greek mythology, Hades lives in freaking Hades and Persephone. Hephaestus does not live in Olympus with the rest of the gods. Like they live all over.
Oh yeah.
Neptune isn't even always in Mount Olympus. I mean Zeus technically lives in Mount Olympus, but Zeus is generally all over the place. Which doesn't surprise me because he's the head. The higher up you go in the hierarchy, the more present you are everywhere. Unless you're a Gnostic, I guess. And then it's all just emanations. Or I guess if you're a Hindu, it's kind of like emanations too, but or one of the bajillion Hindu variations. Anyway, I think I am getting off topic. So, hey, Neff, is there a medieval crusade-like event in your lore outside of Akala versus the Moblin thing? That's probably the closest. Although I wouldn't even say that's like the Crusades. The Crusades were, well, it also depends on which crusade in life you're talking about. The first, the second, the third, the fourth, the crusade against the Gnostics. Since we brought up the Gnostics, all the crusades had slightly different motivations, but I presume you mean like a large collection of people under the umbrella of a theocratic authority going to another location. Well, the thing is, the Crusades weren't even religiously motivated, which I find really funny. The First Crusade, literally, if you read the general outline of the First Crusade, it sounds like a Monty Python movie. The emperor and the Byzantines was like, the Seljuks, they're kind of screwing us over. Could you send some knights to help us out, Pope? And the Pope was like, how do I raise an army of knights to go help the Byzantines? Like, there was no religious motivation at all initially. It was basically just, I don't know. I don't want. I could talk about the Crusades in an entire stream, and I only have like 15 minutes left, so I probably shouldn't go off on the Crusades. But I guess to answer that question, yes and no. The Akala versus Moblin thing probably is the closest, but even that I wouldn't compare to any of the four main Crusades that most people know about. I that's probably not a satisfactory answer. I'm sorry. Let's see, Neffy, you say the idea for parts of lore came from a D&D. Well, just one thing did. It was the one OC race that I came up with, the Huskus. They actually were from a completely unrelated D&D game that is like almost 25 years ago now. They were one of the races that we came up with for a D&D campaign. And I just transplanted them into my Zelda stuff like years later. I'm like, I liked those things. I'm gonna put the Huskus in my Zelda thing.
And we never saw them again.
We never saw them again. Well, that's why they have cloaking devices.
People are really upset that you're not doing more with the Huskies. You know that, right?
I mean, they can become invisible. It makes sense that they would go away. Like, symbolically. They're at odds with the Goma, too. Like, you can't escape the symbols. I know that pisses people off, but that's reality. All you can do with the patterns is invert them. That's all you can do. You can project your cultural images onto them, but like the patterns of reality are the patterns of reality. Like I'm not saying this, but I'm basically saying that there's no such thing as originality. That's not what I'm saying, but I'm kind of saying that. And if someone comes up with something that seems like new and never done before, I can guarantee if you do research and you go back far enough, you'll find an analog for it in history. They might have subconsciously drew upon it, and they didn't consciously go like, oh yeah, that myth from 500 years ago, I'm gonna base my whole story off of that myth. It's just the myths are so built into us that we draw upon them subconsciously. I have no idea how I even got on that topic. Anyway, let's see. Next question, because I only got like 10 minutes left. So, well, I guess if you want, we can try and do one of these next week.
Yeah, we could.
Because we only talked about lore for like, 15, 20 minutes, and then this kind of turned into a Q&A stream.
Yeah. I really want to go into the Sheikah.
Yeah, before we even started the stream, that was what we're going to start with, the Sheikah thing, and we didn't even talk about it once.
We can do it next week.
Yeah, next week I'll be like, no Q&A. We'll just do the Sheikah thing next week. Anyway, I guess I'll try and finish as many questions as I can in 10 minutes.
Yeah.
Just thought of a
I
question I always wanted to ask. How exactly do you model the characters? Namely, how do you get the clothes? Do you use pre-made models with textures or make your own? I'll answer that question in several tiers because there's actually quite a lot there. I use Maya to model everything. I use references to model things. Like I'll find a picture of someone's face. Like Ganondorf's face in Nephi Canon is modeled actually after Mark Alamo's face, who is an actor that isn't really in movies that much anymore. So I basically there's this method called orthographic projection where you have different orthograph, like you have the front, the side, and the top. You have all the flat angles of something you want to model, and then you kind of like you create the 3D mesh. I usually almost always just start with a cube, and then you just like slowly add edges and vertices and polygons to the cube, and you warp it into the orthographic projections until it kind of looks like what you're going for. I have used like small things, like I've bought wing models because I didn't want to freaking model wings, and it's such a generic thing that I just bought wings to use, and then I added my touches to them for simple things like that. Really, really simple things that are like in the background. If I can find it for cheap, I won't bother modeling it because it's just a waste of time at that point. Anything that is like in front of the camera, like I have to put more into it or I'll not be happy with myself. I hope that answers the question.
Yeah.
Let's see what the next question is. All the realms of Hyrule exist in the same physical space. I guess technically that's not really a question, but I guess that's technically true. But I feel if you're at the point where you have to say physical space, it's already looking at it wrong. See, also any Neph cannons for sword spirits. To me, everything has a spirit, so yes, a sword would have a spirit. There's the cats. Every time the cats have to. Anyway, sorry, the cat was interrupting me. So yeah, every sword technically would have a spirit. Every rock. I'm not saying I'm an animist, but I feel like I'm completely just rambling now. Let's see what the next question is. I already answered the Tweely one. Yeah, there's lots of Tweely stuff planned. That might actually be it. I'm not seeing any more. Oh, here's another one. Who are really the Garo ninjas? Are they the enemies of Icona, their vassals, or their allies? They don't like Icona, so they're not vassals or allies. And I assume you mean a Nephi canon. They're hostile towards each other. Let's see. And there's the hell. Of course, I get to the bottom, and then it just jumps, and there's a huge wall of text, and it goes to the bottom. All right, I'll probably answer like 2 or 3 more questions. I got 5 minutes left. Someone's mentioning about. I think people are talking about me rambling about the Norse worlds. Sounds more like another plane. I feel like even conceptualizing it as another plane is still the wrong way to conceptualize it. That's still kind of a materialistic way of looking at it.
Again, look at it as a reflection of mentalities. It's like that's kind of like the best way I can articulate.
Read Plato. I hate saying read this thing, but read Plato and anything having to do with the forms.
Just read.
That really is like the best place to start. Like if you know anything about the Platonic forms, it's like the best place to start.
Just take some DMT and talk to the machine.
Yeah. Take some DMT so you can talk to the forms. I do suspect on some level it is just all in our heads.
Probably, yeah.
Or I should say, I don't want to say that. I should say like that's the conduit for it to manifest physically, or consciousness in particular, which I don't know if I don't think consciousness is limited to the human being, but like consciousness seems to be the the thing necessary to bring the two kind of worlds together, I guess. Without it, it's just all chaos. um, Consciousness is underrated. I guess that's what I would say. Will there be cinematics where Demoko slays Sulcaris? Probably not. I don't know if I'm interested in the idea of parallel. I actually really hate the idea of parallel universes. I'm doing everything I can to avoid time travel and parallel universes and stuff in Nephi canon. I personally think the moment time travel or parallel universes becomes part of any story, the story will inevitably fragment and disintegrate just by the nature of infinite possibility. It'll lose its cohesion, and that's not necessarily a bad thing, especially if the goal of your story has something to do with the breakdown of cohesion. I'm not saying time travel stories or parallel universe stories should be banned and they're always bad, but it's completely antithetical towards my goal, which is the opposite. It's to make something coherent and stable. Which I'll fail at to some degree because I'm already forgetful of things, but yeah. Let's see. What made the Librinians turn away from religion, or at least their specific goddess worship? Pride? That's probably the simplest way I could put it. Personally, I think it really could be summed up all as pride. Obviously, there's a lot of other forces at work, but I really think it's just pride. It's just pride.
Just hubris in general. I just look at the Black Tower and what it represents.
Yeah, it's yeah.
Hubris.
It's they have the belief that since we're talking about the margin earlier, they have the belief that they can account for everything and destroy the margin. But you can't destroy the margin. All you can do is push it further out.
Honestly,
or absorb it, which is what they're doing. They're absorbing their margins.
I think they're sort of similar to the Dwemer in Elder Scrolls in that way that they acknowledge that powerful entities exist, but they don't really consider them as gods in the same way that you'd think.
Yeah.
About a god, right?
Kind of.
It's not really atheism, but it's more like
it's materialism.
Yeah, it's super materialism.
They're materialistic, I guess. They are only interested. They're only interested in learning about the pebbles of the path, not the path itself.
Yeah.
And that path, or that's funny, the path within a path. The study of pebbles will bring you earthly power. But that can't sustain you. Well, it can only sustain part of you, but not all of you. So hopefully that answers that question. My simple, and I don't even think it's just a simple answer. I think it is the answer. It's just pride. That's what led them to get out of hand. Let's see, what will be the role of the heir of Link and Zelda? Oh,
yikes.
Pain.
Frogs
and pain and frogs. Pain for me. I think I'm almost at the bottom, unless I get to the bottom and another wall of wall of text just jumps up. See, Nephi thinks the Gerudo aren't as human as he is. That's Adam asking that question. Gerudo would in historical cosmologies. Oh, there's my alarm. I guess this will be the last question I answer before I go. I guess in ancient myths and stuff, the Gerudo would be something like dog-headed men or animal-headed. Well, the funny thing is, just to the west of the Gerudo are freaking dog-headed men in Hyrule. So they're one step above the dog-headed men in ancient cosmology. They're the last step between where they're recognizable as human, and then you get into a culture that starts to be too alien, where you don't see the entire bit of humanity in them. So So yeah, the Gerudo aren't as the Gerudo aren't as Helian as the Helians. They are, but you know that's because their culture's different, and it goes the same way. If the Gerudo become your center, the Helians aren't as Gerudo as the Gerudo. Okay. Let me see if there's one more question I can answer before I go. If it's something I can answer quickly. I know the goddesses are mostly absent by now, but what are they doing? They'll probably take too long to answer that. So, if I miss your questions, I don't know. I feel like I need to do like 3 or 4 streams. This is like the most questions we've ever gotten in one of these streams. We usually run out of them after like an hour or two, but we've been going, I think, almost 2.5 hours, and it's been like a non-stop stream of questions. I'm not complaining. I really like it. We didn't talk about lore at all.
Yeah, no. Okay,
So next week I'm gonna have to be like no Q&A. I'll do another Q&A stream or something. Yeah, I think I have to stop answering questions. I have to go now. So yeah, hopefully you guys enjoyed that stream. I would have gone on another hour or so, but I have real life to deal with, so.
Yeah, we'll do a more focused lore stream next week. If you guys, then you guys can tune in if you just want to listen to discussion.
Yeah, if you're available earlier in the week, I can try and do it earlier in the week, because I do occasionally have 1 or 2 days off during the week, but it seems like your schedule's usually busy until the weekend.
Yeah, I'll just notify you how my schedule looks next week.
Okay. Otherwise, I guess we'll try next Friday or Saturday like we did this weekend, and for that stream, we'll be like, no, I won't answer any questions until we get through what we plan on talking about. All right, well, hopefully, guys, you enjoyed me rant. I didn't even get to talk about crystals.
No.
I didn't even talk about the house crystal, the crystal house in the sky. I was gonna yeah. Anyway, I hope you enjoyed the rambling stream. See you guys next week, probably.